This is the piece of your script that will most directly impact not just readers, but also a potential audience. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. This week I want to go over everything you need to know when you're formatting your script. One of the most important things a screenwriter needs to know is how to format their script. Nothing is going to take a reader out of your script faster than it not being formatted properly. Unfortunately, unless you take a formal screenwriting class, you might not have the opportunity to have all this explained to you, so I really wanted to focus on that today. To help kind of visualize what I'm talking about, I'm going to use the Ted Lasso pilot script to show you the different elements that I'm talking about. One of the first things you'll see when you look at a script is the slug line, which is also sometimes called a scene heading, and this is separated into 3 different parts. First is interior and exterior, which is shown by INT period or EXT period, and this basically just shows whether the scene is happening inside or outside. Then you've got the setting. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Where does your scene take place? Finally, the time. In most cases, you're just really going to put day or night. Unless it's really important to the story, then you can put morning or evening or whatever else you need. But if it's not important to the story, day or night is usually the standard practice. There are also a few other options you can put for time. So you might see somebody put later for time. So if you're in the same setting, but it's just happening, this next scene is at a later point. You can put moments later or same time or even continuous. So if anybody is familiar with the scene in Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley, there's that scene where she's looking in the mirror and the sun goes all the way down and she's still sitting there looking in the mirror. That's a great example of when continuous would be used for a time in a slug line because it's happening continuously. So this example in the Ted Lasso script, you've got EXT period for exterior. The setting is Greenwich. Nobody judge me on that. FC training grounds, and the time is morning. You might also notice that slug lines are always fully capitalized, and sometimes some people like to bold their slug lines, but that really just comes down to personal preference, but the capitalization is important. Okay, now we're going to talk about action. This is a tricky aspect of screenwriting. It's really important to keep your action as concise as possible for your story. When you have really extensive action or description or anything like that, it can really drag the pacing and it makes it difficult for readers. If you come from a novel writing background, this can be a really difficult transition, but you want to just strip everything down to the bone. Now, I want to be careful here because the general rule is to keep the focus more on dialogue than action, but I have seen people talking more recently about how scripts can be benefited by being more action heavy. So I've been working to reframe this rule in my head. So be really careful with action. Make sure that you're utilizing your action lines in the ways that most benefit your story. And remember that the general rule is to keep action more concise and focus more on dialogue. But there might be some wiggle room there. Though what is really important with this is when you have action dialogue, keep it on action. Super heavy, long, detailed descriptions, even if they may sound pretty and be very poetic, it sounds nice, but it's not particularly helpful for a script where the audience doesn't really get to see any of that dialogue. This is one of the most important aspects of your script. This is the piece of your script that will most directly impact not just readers, but also a potential audience. You don't want your dialogue to be too long and mess with the pacing of the script, but it's okay every now and then to have some longer dialogue in there and break it up a little bit. When you're formatting your dialogue, it's gonna look like this. Start with the speaking character's name in all caps centered on the page. Then on the next line, type the dialogue. If you're using a scriptwriting software, it will automatically format these lines in the direct margins that they belong in, so I definitely recommend using screenwriting software. Now, for example, if a character is going to be speaking off screen, you actually format that a little bit differently. When you write their name in all caps, next to it in parentheses, you would put OS for off screen. It's O.S. but OS for off screen. Another option is voiceover, which gets VO, or pre-lap. And pre-lap is when a character is speaking before the scene starts. So it kind of overlays over a previous scene. Finally, if two characters are speaking at the same time, you're going to format it in what's called dual dialogue, and the dialogue tags for each character will show up next to each other on the script. And here is what that looks like on the page. Now for character introductions. Whenever you're introducing a new character, you capitalize the character's name, but only the first time you write it and only in the action line. After their name, include an age or an age range, and I personally like to include a short little description with it as well. I put this next to the character's name in parentheses, but that's really up to you, however you want to format it. Now for act breaks. Act breaks aren't necessarily something you have to do. I like to do it, but it doesn't really, it's not a hard rule. I would definitely make sure if you're submitting your script anywhere that you check and see if that company or anything like that has any preferences, because you definitely want to follow the preferences of wherever you're submitting. If you are going to do act breaks, make sure that you format them in all caps, underlined at the top center of the page, and every new act should start on a new page. So if you are finishing an act and you're halfway through the page, the next act will start on the next page. Does not matter to have a half of a blank page. And if you include a teaser or a tag in your episode, that would also go with the same format. The last thing I want to talk about are shots. Shots are capitalized and left aligned. You don't want to overuse them because that's more the director's job, and you want to be careful not to overdo it and overstep unless you're planning to write and direct, but I would still just be careful not to overuse them. But if something is particularly important to the story, you can include it. A lot of writers also will include a fade in and fade out shot in their scripts to just kind of show as things come in and out, but that's the only one I really see regularly used. Okay, that's everything that I can think of. If you have any more questions about script formatting, please leave them in the comment section, along with any suggestions you might have for other videos I could do. If you're looking for any more screenwriting videos, definitely let me know. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, you can follow me down below, and make sure you turn on the bell so you don't miss any of my new videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye!